I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown. And here we are at the final video we've all been waiting for, that we've been leading up to, my final predictions for the 2024 Oscars. If you guys have been joining us along for the entire journey, thank you. You guys have been showing a lot of support, making this one of our most successful Old's Oscar Countdown series. So I'm very happy to see all the comments, all the reactions, the likes, showing up for the videos. It's truly appreciated on my end, and we call it Old's Oscar Countdown because we count down to the Oscars all the way since October. Now this is our 8th season, predicting the Oscars accurately every year. But ultimately, I love to hear you guys come along, give your own thoughts, because that's what I want to create here on this channel, is a great, awesome, Oscar-loving community where, hey, these are my thoughts, I'll give you some of my reasoning, but ultimately, they're here to help you make your own predictions. The final episode of this season will be my Oscar reactions, which I will upload the Monday morning after the Oscars, and then after that, I'll start up with a new series like I do every year in between the Oscars. Stay tuned for next week's video for my announcement of that. But I wanted to do now with this video, give my predictions for the Oscars in every single category. We won't be doing a deep dive. We'll just do sort of high-level understanding of why I picked a movie. And if you want to hear my thoughts on certain categories over others, do use the timestamps in the description below. But starting off with the big one, Best Picture, my prediction is going to go to Oppenheimer. A dominant winner so far in the precursors, winning pretty much every award it can. BAFTA, DGA, PGA, SAG. I'd be shocked if it wasn't Oppenheimer, and it does seem like it is the movie of the year. It was a frontrunner right in September and in October in my initial rankings, and it hasn't moved since. I think Oppenheimer is going to win based on so much of its current success and awards that it's already won. Best Actress, this is a fun one, and I'm going to go with Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. I gave my kind of pitch for Lily on my SAG Award reactions video, and essentially the way I come down on it is it's a 50-50 shot based on stats. Emma Stone won the BAFTA, Lily Gladstone won the SAG. Some years it's the BAFTA is more important, some years it's SAG. So for me, I tried to look at the history of the Oscars and figure out what they like to do, and for many years, they like to reward the ingenue, the new actress. That's why we see so many younger female actresses win in this category. And when we do see actresses who win multiple times, someone like a Frances McDormand winning 2 times in recent years, in 2017 and 2020, or Jodie Foster winning for The Accused and then Silence of the Lambs, or even Hilary Swank winning for $1 Million Baby, her second one after winning just a few years earlier with Boys Don't Cry. Whenever we see that happen, it's almost always going to the Best Picture winner. If you think about it, right? Jodie Foster wins for The Accused, then she wins again for Silence of the Lambs, Best Picture winner. Frances McDormand wins again in quick succession, well, because she was in the Best Picture winner. Even same thing with Hilary Swank. So when we're looking at this category here, you have the ingenue in Lily Gladstone, the newcomer, the person who's never been nominated before, and then you have Emma Stone, who's already won an Oscar, who's won an Oscar recently. But guess what? Emma Stone is not a Best Picture winner like Frances McDormand or Jodie Foster. So the Oscars, particularly in this category, they like to reward the new person. They don't like to reward the same people over and over again. And if they do, that person's in a Best Picture winner. So because I don't have Poor Things winning Best Picture, I think Lily Gladstone will win for Best Actress because the Oscars want her to win. And I even think Emma Stone secretly kind of wants her to win. Lily Gladstone wants it a little bit more, and I think the Oscar voters, they're human. They're going to want to reward the person, not necessarily the performance. And I think Lily Gladstone has the momentum coming off SAG to give it that extra boost of a narrative. Because in this race, when you have stats that are pretty even, sometimes you have to make a call, and I'm making a call of narrative based on how the Oscars historically have liked to reward this category. Then for Best Actor, I'm going to go with Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer. I've been predicting him since day one, and his recent wins at BAFTA and SAG for the Best Actor category have secured him as the clear frontrunner. He is Oppenheimer in Oppenheimer, which is the most acclaimed movie of the year, and I do think that he's going to ride the wave and success and belovedness of that film. to a win based on his industry awards, and then also his secretly showy performance playing this complex man who withers away as a result of his creation. Cillian Murphy, I think, is going to win for Best Actor for Oppenheimer. And then the Best Supporting Actress category, I'm going to go with Da'Vine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. She has been rewarded countless times throughout this award season. She's loved by the critics, but she's also won pretty much every industry award imaginable. She never loses in this category. I'd be stunned if she doesn't win. Then the Best Supporting Actor category, I'm going to go with another chalk pick, but I do think it's going to go to Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. I said at the beginning of the season, if Robert Downey Jr. wants this Oscar, he can get it, because I knew how charming he was on the red carpet, and I knew how beloved Oppenheimer was, that he had a path, and that's exactly what he did. He was out at lots of parties, he did the campaigning, he had many great award speeches, he did the kind of thing that you need to do to win an Oscar, and his charm and his talent took him the rest of the way. So I would be shocked, once again for another supporting category, if Robert Downey Jr. does not win for Oppenheimer. Then Best Director, I'm going to go with Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. This is even more of a lock than Oppenheimer winning Best Picture. I think this is the final anointment of Christopher Nolan as the King of Hollywood, just like Steven Spielberg was awarded for Schindler's List back in '93. Now we have 30 years later, it's the handing over to Christopher Nolan for making commercial movies that everyone's been loving, and now finally a commercial movie that's also that prestige element that the Oscars love, historical biopic. The technical nominations that it got and the technical wins that it will likely get, combined with potentially 2 acting wins, is enough of a tour de force kind of complete film that the Oscars have been loving all season, and that other award shows have been showing their love for Christopher Nolan, winning at DGA, winning at the Golden Globes, winning at BAFTA. Once again, another person who's been winning everywhere, and I think that's going to continue for the Oscars. Best Original Screenplay, I went with Anatomy of a Fall, and I think the decision here between Anatomy of a Fall or The Holdovers comes down to where you think the Academy is. Anatomy of a Fall is very indicative of the new Academy. In the past few years, we've seen the Academy grow its membership, particularly becoming more international, and as a result, they've been rewarding more complex international dramas, movies like Parasite or Drive My Car, or even something like All Quiet on the Western Front. And Anatomy of a Fall fits into those kinds of winners. Whereas The Holdovers is a classic Oscar movie, makes you feel good, dramedy, American, feels like a movie from the 70s that the Oscars may have already celebrated, like The Paper Chaser or what have you. But I'm going with Anatomy of a Fall because I think the Academy has officially transitioned into more of the newer International Academy, and also Anatomy of a Fall won the Screenplay Prize at BAFTA, beating out The Holdovers, and Anatomy of a Fall won Best Screenplay at the Golden Globes. It wasn't Best Original or Adapted at the Golden Globes, it was just Screenplay. So it beat out every other screenplay that was in contention at that award show. Now, the Golden Globes aren't very indicative of predicting the Oscars, but I do think it shows a strong sign of support, where when people vote for these awards, they think of Anatomy of a Fall, they think of the screenplay. Continually, it almost always wins. Even at critics groups, it's been doing very well in the screenplay category. And I also think it's important that Justine Triet was nominated for Best Director. She co-wrote the script, so this is another way to sort of give her support and give her the win, in the same way they'll give Kenneth Branagh the screenplay win, but not the director win for a movie like Belfast. Then Best Adapted Screenplay, I'm going to go with American Fiction. And this is a secretly tough category because I'm going based on the statistics and what the other award shows have sort of hinted to, which is American Fiction, which won at Critics' Choice Awards, which was a bit of a surprise. It won at BAFTA, which was a huge surprise. So it has the support there in the Adapted Screenplay category, but I see it's a tough category because it's going up against Oppenheimer. And Oppenheimer is just a juggernaut of a film this year, and there's going to be people that vote for Oppenheimer in literally every single category, and that support may be enough to beat out a movie like American Fiction. But then there's also a movie like Barbie, which is very creative, very unique, and it's a way for the Oscars to reward Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, who are two people who they absolutely respect. So maybe that's an opportunity to reward Barbie. Hard to say for sure, but I'm going with American Fiction because I think it's notable that at the Critics' Choice Awards, it surprised and got a adapted screenplay win. Same thing with BAFTA. Now we have the Oscars, who have given it more nominations than the BAFTAs, more nominations than Critics' Choice Awards. So if the BAFTAs, who only gave it one nomination, adapted screenplay, and still gave it the win, indicates to me that the Oscars, who like American Fiction more, will also follow suit and give it to Best Adapted Screenplay. And it makes sense. Writer, director, witty, unique, different, very funny as well, but also emotional, does a lot from what you want out of a screenplay, and I do think it makes sense for the win here. Best cinematography, I predict it's going to go to Oppenheimer. Hoyt van Hoytema is a well-respected cinematographer who has never won before, despite being nominated for another Christopher Nolan movie in Dunkirk, but shooting many other great movies, Her, Nope, what have you. And it won at the American Society of Cinematographers Awards, it won at BAFTA, and I think a lot of people saw Oppenheimer in IMAX, so they saw it in the ideal format, which emphasizes the images, high crisp images as well. You also have the fact that you have the black and white photography and the fact that they had to create black and white IMAX film, which never existed, so there's a technical achievement reward element to that, combined with Oppenheimer just being a super well-liked movie that looks fantastic, that so many people saw in theaters, I think will contribute to the cinematography win. Best documentary, I'm going to go with 20 Days in Mariupol. It has been winning the important precursors, winning at DGA and BAFTA. It did not win at PGA, the Producers Guild, but it lost to American Symphony, and American Symphony is not nominated here at the Oscars, so no concern about it losing to that there. They like to go with important, timely movies, particularly in the documentary category, and this movie about the war in Ukraine has a lot of, I can't believe they got that footage, very harrowing, very kind of a brave movie in many ways, and I think people are going to be blown away by it in the filmmaking, but also want to reward something that is important, political, and timely, and 20 Days in Mariupol checks all those boxes. Best animated feature, I went with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I think a lot of people are kind of debating this category, and it's been a bit of a debate online, and rightfully so. Boy and the Heron has won some important precursors, but for me, I feel pretty confident that it's going to go to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, despite some of its losses at other award shows, because when we look at the Oscars in particular and the Academy, they usually go with the more mainstream movie. They'll go with Toy Story 4 over Klaus. They'll go with Zootopia over Kubo and the Two Strings. So I think they're going to go with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the Hollywood mainstream movie, over the stranger, foreign movie in The Boy and the Heron. And I think the fact that they rewarded the first Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we know that they like this kind of style of animation and this story, and this one did even better at the box office, had even better reviews critically, and it's a little bit more mainstream and easily accessible on an emotional level than something like Boy and the Heron, and I think that will appeal to the large members of the Academy. Let's not forget, the Academy's up to now 10,000 people. Sometimes the more popular movie, if it's a close race, will win, and I think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the more popular movie compared to The Boy and the Heron. Then, in the Best Production Design category, I'm going to go with Poor Things, and it has been beating Barbie out in this category at every award show. I thought initially that it would maybe go to Barbie because I was getting flashbacks of the 2018 race when it was The Favorite versus Black Panther. The Favorite was a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, and the same thing Poor Things was, and Black Panther ended up winning. But unlike that season in the production design category, we've had multiple instances in which Barbie went directly against Poor Things in some of these guild awards. So the Art Directors Guild, the Set Decorators Guild, BAFTA. Barbie and Poor Things faced off in this production design category. Poor Things won every single time. So even though I do think Barbie's going to resonate a little bit more with the Academy and the American branch in particular of the Academy, which still the Academy is mostly American, I still think that the international members of the Academy and some of the American fans of the movie as well will go with Poor Things, and it's won at every single place. So I have a little bit of a hesitation, but still I'm banking on the fact that Poor Things has been winning everywhere, so I do expect it to continue and win at the Oscars. Then for Best Costume Design, I'm going to go with Barbie. And this is a little bit of a stray off the beaten path. I think a lot of people are going to go Barbie, Barbie, or Poor Things, Poor Things. I decided to split them. And I'm not doing this because I'm cowardly and I'm not sure which one to pick. I generally do think there is a possibility for a split. And I went with Barbie in the costume design category because unlike production design, they've only faced off twice. So at Critics' Choice, in which Barbie won, and then at BAFTA, in which Poor Things won. And at the Guild Awards, the Costume Designers Guild, they were in separate categories, so they didn't compete. So it is truly a 50-50, who knows best, nobody, kind of a guess of a category. So the reason I went with Barbie is because this category in particular, the costume design category, loves past winners. As a matter of fact, the last 4 winners in this category have not only been past nominees, but they've been past winners. So it's their second Oscar, the third Oscar for these people just in the past 4 years. And they like to continually do that. When we see surprises, it will go to Colleen Atwood for her second or third Oscar for a movie like Fantastic Beasts. So this category in particular loves the repeat winners. And guess what? Barbie is from Jacqueline Duran, who already has 2 Oscars, has been nominated 9 times. Poor Things is Holly Waddington. This is her first nomination. So I think the appreciation for Jacqueline Duran and the movie and the Halloween costumes that came out of this movie, you gotta give some credit for the costumes there. I do think Barbie will, in surprise in many ways, and win the costume design category, but not the production design category. Then the Best Makeup and Hairstyling Award, I'm going to predict Maestro will win this. There's been some debate whether or not it's this or Poor Things, but in many ways I think Maestro is the clear winner. We've seen continually this category link with the Best Acting categories. So the past 2 years, The Whale wins for makeup and Brendan Fraser wins for Best Actor. The year before, The Eyes of Tammy Faye wins for makeup and Jessica Chastain wins. And that makes sense because they're focused on the makeup and the makeup of Oscar-nominated actors. Even when the actor doesn't win, it still wins in makeup. So Vice will win for Best Makeup, and that Christian Bale got nominated for the Oscar, but he didn't end up winning. So you look at this year and you go Bradley Cooper and Carey Mulligan. The 2 main stars of this movie have, especially Bradley, significant prosthetic work going on, and they're also nominated at the Oscars, Bradley and Carey Mulligan. Poor Things has significant prosthetic works on Willem Dafoe, who's not nominated at the Oscars and is a supporting character in the movie. Whereas Maestro, it is the 2 main lead characters who have a lot of that makeup, in particular Bradley Cooper, who has been doing a lot of campaigning. I think some people are hope predicting a movie like Poor Things to win here because they don't like Maestro or they think Bradley Cooper is a little bit cringy. I don't care about that. We're trying to make accurate predictions. It swept up at the Makeup Guild in terms of lots of wins there. It is a clear connection between the actor, 2 actors nominated in Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper, and the win. We continually see this every single year. The actor has to be nominated for the makeup movie to win, especially when it has to do with a lot of those prosthetics. And Bradley Cooper, the Oscar-nominated Bradley Cooper, is the one who has a lot of those prosthetics on his face. Kazuhiro is also a 2-time winner in this category and is well respected, essentially a legend in the industry now. But Maestro got nominated for Best Picture. It's not going to get any other awards. I think this is the one place where you can support a movie like Maestro. It is well liked within the Academy, and I do think it will win for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. Best Score, I'm going to go with Oppenheimer. Oftentimes for these technical categories, the most wins, so the most costumes or the most score, and this definitely falls into that category. It also doesn't hurt that it won at the Golden Globes and BAFTA and Critics' Choice Awards. Ludwig Göransson is a past winner and did a lot of score for this movie, so it's very recognizable too for a lot of people. So I think Oppenheimer will win for Best Score. Best Sound, I also went with Oppenheimer because I think a lot of people saw this movie in an IMAX theater, or at the very least in movie theaters, and we've seen past kind of IMAX movie theater movies, Dunkirk, Dune, Top Gun, all win in this category because when you see a movie in the theater with that big loud speaker system, you immediately associate your experience with the movie with the sound of the movie. Now I know there's some debate about whether or not a movie like The Zone of Interest would win, but the problem with that is it's going up against Oppenheimer, which won at the Cinema Audio Society Awards, which won at the Motion Picture Sound Editors Guild, and by the way, The Zone of Interest actually lost at the Motion Picture Sound Editors Guild to Society of the Snow in the foreign language feature category. So that was a sign that The Zone of Interest is weak amongst some of the guild members. And Oppenheimer is just a super well-beloved movie. even more so than a movie like The Zone of Interest. So because it has memorable sound and because it is so well liked, I do think Oppenheimer still wins Best Sound despite its loss at BAFTA. Best song, I went with What Was I Made For from Barbie. They almost always like to go with the emotional ballad over the funnier song, so I don't think they're going to go with I'm Just Ken, although I do think it is a serious contender in this category. They love Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas, who they've already rewarded before. It won Song of the Year at the Grammys, not Best Original Movie Song, but Song of the Year at the Grammys. Very well liked overall as a song, the emotional part of the movie. They like these emotional ballads. It makes too much sense. I think What Was I Made For is going to win here. Best International Feature, I went with The Zone of Interest. Pretty simple here. It is the only movie of the 5 nominated in Best International Feature that also got a nomination for Best Picture. Therefore, we can assume that amongst the entire Academy, they like The Zone of Interest better than some of these other movies, so it should easily win. Best Visual Effects, this is a fun one, and I went with Godzilla -1 because I think sometimes you have to have kind of internet wins. That the internet, it kind of hates Maestro, and they like Barbie and Oppenheimer, and they like Past Lives, and sometimes, oftentimes they're kind of clueless and they're out on their own and they don't know who's going to win. But sometimes you see wins and you see surprises, and Godzilla -1 I think is that kind of surprise this year. We don't really have a clear frontrunner in terms of past winners. Poor Things, which isn't nominated here, won at BAFTA. The Creator won at VES, but that's a weird insular guild at times that doesn't always get it right. So for me, what I try to look at is what is the most well-liked movie. So these movies like First Man or Interstellar usually win this category because they have grounded, realistic VFX and they're well-liked as movies, which is why First Man beats out a movie like Avengers Infinity War. Now, technically this year, Napoleon would be the most well-liked movie because it has the most other nominations. But I still think that Godzilla -1 has higher critical acclaim and has higher goodwill amongst the industry of the Academy Award voters. It's a feel-good story. The director did the visual effects, so you can reward the full team in many ways by giving it the visual effects award. I think the internet's going to get a win and get the Godzilla -1 win. Despite some historical stats it's going against, ultimately I'm going with the movie that I think is the most well-liked, which has proven helpful for me in the past. And I do think, despite Napoleon's multiple nominations, Godzilla -1 is the more general, overall, well-liked movie. Best Editing, I'm going to go with Oppenheimer. Won at BAFTA, won at the Ace Eddie Awards. It's the well-liked movie in Oppenheimer, of course, that is also complexly edited. They like movies that are long. This is 3 hours. We're cutting back in time in terms of the different events that are going on, black and white versus color, objective versus subjective. And I think Jennifer Lame, who's a very exciting editor, I'm excited to see her finally get an Oscar, which I do think will happen here for Oppenheimer. Then the best short categories, starting off with best animated short, which I'm going to go with War Is Over, inspired by the music of John and Yoko. And sometimes you have to pick movies based on the name, because guess what? Oscar voters are also picking movies based on the name. There are a lot of people that vote on these categories despite not seeing all 5 of the movies or only seeing 1 or 2 of them. So when you look at the possible movies that are nominated here and you're an Oscar voter and you're trying to figure out what you should pick, you'll be gravitated to a movie like War Is Over, which, it's inspired by the music of John and Yoko. I like the Beatles. Then you watch the documentary. It's got very unique, notable animation style, and then a very obvious but emotionally impactful needle drop at the end that if you're already a Beatles fan and were connected to watching this movie, you'll be even more emotionally connected and moved. So I do think it's going to win there. Then for best documentary short, I'm going to go with the ABCs of book banning. In similar arguments to War Is Over, I think it has a catchy title, but I also think it has more than that. First of all, it's from Sheila Nevins. If you don't know who Sheila Nevins is, she ran HBO documentary for a long time, legendary documentary producer, now working with MTV. She's won 32 times, not nominated, won 32 times at the Emmys, oftentimes for documentaries. So she's very well connected within Hollywood, very well liked as well. So even with that factor, you probably would vote for her. But then the movie of itself has a very easy to understand and I think resonant message of don't ban art, don't burn books. this is a bad thing. Of course, the artists are going to love that. They want art to live on. They want art to be celebrated. And there will be a very, moving speech that they'll be able to give, even though the message is pretty general, pretty broad. But because of that, and because of the support that I think Sheila Nevins already has just by having friends within the Academy, I think for her first Oscar nomination, she's going to win for the ABCs of book banning. And then the final category for the 2024 Oscars, the 23rd category, is Best Live Action Short, and I'm going to go with The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. This is probably the toughest of any of the short categories this year, where I could really see any of the 5 winning, but I'm going to go with Wes Anderson, who has never won an Oscar before. I think this will be his first Oscar, and I think what matters for these short categories, because not everybody watches all of the nominees, is notoriety. And guess what? This is from the biggest filmmaker of this group, Wes Anderson, no name on Netflix, the biggest streaming service of the bunch. So I think a lot of Oscar voters have seen this, and not necessarily some of the others. They want Wes Anderson to get an Oscar. We often see in this category in particular movies like The Long Goodbye, which had Riz Ahmed in it, or The Phone Call, which had Sally Jenkins in it. These movies will win in this category because they have big, recognizable stars. This movie has recognizable stars, particularly in Benedict Cumberbatch. Stars, big name in Wes Anderson, big streaming service in Netflix. They may go weird and go their own route if not a lot of people vote, but I do think enough normies will vote, having not even seen all the nominees, and just go, hey, I like Wes Anderson, let's give him the win. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your predictions in the comments down below to see what you guys are thinking. And then, of course, you can brag if you get them right in my Oscar reactions video. Use these to help guide your predictions or to maybe have some debates in the comments down below. All civil, of course, but always encouraged. That's about it. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss my Oscar reactions video once that goes live, Sunday night, Monday morning situation. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.